Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Heart of Christ Ministry podcast, also known as, or also been called the Love Your Vibe podcast. But we changed it here recently. Last episode, if you didn't get a chance to hear that, it is now officially Heart of Christ Ministry. So, with that being said, thank you guys for joining us. Hope you are doing well this morning, whether you're listening to this presently in the morning or it's the evening time, afternoon, whenever it is. I hope this message finds you well. As always, with this new shift in perspective, it is about lifting everyone up in prayer, allowing people to just really start the day off in a high vibrational capacity. And so, I'm going to start there by lifting this ministry up and lifting you up in prayer. And I ask you to join me real quick. It's going to be really short and to the point here. Dear God and me, thank you so much. We oftentimes lose sight of the fact of how wonderful, how amazing, and such an enormously wonderful time life is, living here at this moment in time, that is. And I just ask that you grant us the ability, the awareness, the know-how to understand how fortunate we are to be here in this moment, to continually evolve, to continually to grow, to continually be what you have called us to be in this moment and the moment thereafter, and for this entire life that we've stepped onto this earth with. I ask that you lift us all up in truth. You lift us all up in love. You lift us all up within grace to only know happiness, to only know victory, to only know joy, to only know peace, and to understand that we are encompassed by the benevolent, amazing, terrific grace of God that permeates and infuses every area of our lives. Thank you for blessing us with this day and everything that comes with it. Let's write a new story in Jesus' name, and so it is. All right. So before I get into today's topic, which is God's plan, it's so funny because I was listening to Drake and then I came up with this message. But before I get into this, I just need to clarify something. So this ministry is not, I think people get confused sometimes when they see Heart of Christ and they see ministry, more importantly Christ, and more importantly ministry. And it's not your traditional Christian ministry, although I have a very deep Christian background. This ministry is more about the concept of love within the Christ consciousness. Okay, this is more about consciousness. This is more about uplifting individuals, right? And so I know sometimes people can get confused and all of a sudden think that I'm not following the Christian dogma, but it's one of those things where it goes so much further than that, because here's the thing, and this is my opinion, in my opinion alone, I think as a Christian, sometimes being solely focused on that, we limit ourselves to reaching people outside of the Christian faith, and I truthfully and honestly believe, Jesus was not about that. Jesus went after everybody. He went after everybody and offered everybody such a deep, resonating level of love and compassion. And that is my primary objective here today, is to be able to bring that in to every instance, moment, and situation that I'm in. And that's what this ministry is about. So I just wanted to clarify that first and foremost. And I also wanted to thank each and every one of you guys who have continued to support, whether it's through monetary, through emotional, through encouragement. Thank you so very much. Words can't express the joy that comes from being able to be in a position to where so much love and support is poured in. So I appreciate you greatly. But let's get into today's message. God's amazing plan for you, right? And So, like I said, I was listening to the song "God's Plan" by Drake, and I came up with this message. I was trying to, I was trying to figure out, well, what message will I do today that's impactful and that can be really, that can really allow people to feel um, that there is a higher power or a greater power. I want to say higher because higher means separation, but a greater power within themselves that is God, right? Because you and I are God. We're all in this oneness concept that is working in their lives at this moment. And so I thought God's plan. And I'm like, you know what? We should really delve into what God's plan is and how it functions within our lives. And so I reached this place where if I look at the course of my life, God's plan has been two things: destiny and decision. Okay? Destiny and decision. And so it's interesting because let's look at this first one real quick. Destiny. And all destiny is, because we're living in an ever-evolving, participatory universe that's in a perpetual state of flow, decisions are a whole new ball game, right? But there's a level of destiny with each of us, and it comes to the point of gifts. It comes to the point of what has your divine DNA been programmed with for you, with certain gifts for you to offer to this world, to offer to everybody in this world, right? And so I feel like a lot of what we do in the very beginning of life, and then sometimes even into adulthood for a lot of us, is we attempt to find those gifts and hone those gifts. Now, this can be often the most difficult part because for some, it's very easy, like some realize that they're supposed to be professional athletes and they go into that and they dive into that, and that's they're moving right away, even from a young age. Some people have to go through experiences, much like myself. I had to go through experiences in different places and different things and different walks of life to understand that, my gift is as a teacher. My gift is as a minister in the sense of serving, uplifting, encouraging, exhorting people. So it's all about finding out what is my destiny, right? And so speaking of prayer, this is something that is really extraordinarily important to pray upon, right? And so, what we have to know is that we can pray about anything and understand that through prayer, clarity will be revealed at some point in time, whether it's sooner, whether it's later. It all depends on the situation. But if we really pray about our destiny, we'll find that a lot of things are revealed. We'll find that a lot of things are reached in the sense of, we can see them clearly for what they are. And so once we find that destiny, we can begin making decisions, okay? And so from a decisions perspective, decisions are all the choices that you make. Now, I look at my life now and where I'm at, and then I look back in the past, there are a lot of decisions I wouldn't have made. I would have been able to take the energy that I've had and direct it towards something that's more in resonance with my calling. But you live and you learn, and you live and you teach, in my case, to help you to know that, all right, find out what your destiny is. Find out what you've been equipped with. Find out what gifts God has bestowed upon you, and then make decisions based on those gifts, right? So I'll give you an example. For the longest time, I thought I was really meant to be an actor, but then the more I grew within the God in me, and I became more and delved into the God consciousness, I realized that was just something that I was seeking to get approval from when I already had approval from the God in me on the inside. Yet and still, I made decisions and used creative energy to follow this empty sort of dream, because that's what it was. There was nothing in it for me like there is now. But I used so much energy to follow that until I was ready to move in a direction that made sense to me, what that made sense from a divine design perspective. And so, in looking back at that, my goal now is to keep people from doing the exact same thing. Like, so you have to go within and you have to ask, is this really for me? Am I really equipped to do this thing? Because it's something interesting. Even before I got to that place, my feelings would always make me completely aware that I wasn't necessarily doing the right thing. And it wasn't like I was feeling bad and my stomach was turning in knots or anything like that. But I could tell that something felt off a bit. I didn't feel like myself. And so those were signals from my inner guidance. And it wasn't anything like somebody hit me over the head with something. It was more like an inner nudge, like, this is not for you. Yeah, you could be good at it, but there's something that is greater for you. There's something more tied into your destiny. So destiny is just a matter of finding those gifts that come naturally and really developing those things, right? Really honing into those things. Fortunately, not just for me, but for all of us, the divine puts us in situations and puts us in certain things that allow those gifts to be amplified, to be developed, to be sharpened, even when when we're not on a path necessarily that seems to be the perfect path, right? So, I'm sitting here and I'm just like thinking to myself, it's a marvelous thing when you get to this, when you're on this planet and you go through a lot of stuff and you really realize why you're here on this earth. And the reason why I say it's marvelous is because you finally know your purpose. You finally know where your energy should be directed towards every day of your life, right? Because it's tied into your calling. It's tied into your destiny. And when you follow that, you begin to see that your truth unfolds rapidly, much quicker than anything else if you would have gotten into it. All right. So before we move on to decisions, let's just say, let's say you're at a standstill. Let's say you're doing something. It's lost its zest. It's kind of like making you feel like, well, I don't know if this is something that I should continue with. I'm just trying to figure this out. I'm just turning, running in circles, spinning my wheels. That's an opportunity to really look at things and say, you know what? Maybe there's something greater. And then you take it within. You can do that through meditation. You can do that through introspection. You take it within yourself and you go from there and begin to see, like, even spanning your childhood, you think about what you love the most. And so from my own experience, what I loved the most was performing, right? But performing in the sense of not for the sake of performing, but performing to inspire people, right? That's why I like certain levels of performance, like when a crowd wasn't around or something like that, those were just kind of empty for me. They just weren't fulfilling. But when I had the opportunity to inspire and encourage and uplift people, that brought me so much joy, and I can even remember today, like, playing organized sports and scoring touchdowns and buckets and goals and stuff like that, and just getting like this charge of electricity. That was what was destined for me to be at some point in my life. And thankfully, I've been able to live that a number of times. But now I know, like, this is my truth. This is where I'm supposed to be at. And so, for you, I desire the same thing. And so I think one of the questions you can ask yourself, and you can even journal on this, and then we're going to move on to decision, is, what have I been placed on this earth to do, right? And if you want to make it more spiritual, you can say, what does God want to do through me in this lifetime? And I tell you something, that question, a form of that question, not exactly, but a form of that question I used and asked every single day. And the funny thing is I got it instantly. I just didn't recognize it consciously, right? I can think back the moment I asked that question, I got the answer right away, but I just didn't notice. I didn't notice until after the fact. But amazingly enough, because I'm rooted in my divine guidance, I was taking all the right actions, so to speak, to hone those gifts, even though I wasn't necessarily on the optimal path. I was still using my time to hone my gifts. And so that's pretty, tells you, it gives you an idea of how amazing the divine can be when it comes down to stuff like this, when it comes down to you figuring out your purpose for being here, your soul signature, so to speak. So think about that and really take that into account, because once you find that, it does bring a lot more clarity to your life and a lot less confusion, okay? So number 2, we're going into decisions, all right? So we said that God's plan is 2 parts, destiny and decision, all right? So when we think of decisions, basically all we're saying is choices. Choices. So you look at the course of your life and you look at your life right now, it is a direct correlation to the choices that you've made. And so when we think of those things, when we think of those choices, the first thing that comes to mind is this. Are we happy? Right? On a scale from 0 to 100 or 0 to 10, 10 being the highest, 100 being the highest, where is our happiness level? And I just got like a 98, which is like astounding. I'm like, okay, I got to figure out where that 0.2% needs to come in, or 2% needs to come in. But, you got to think about, are you happy? Because if you're not happy, then you got to change the choices that you're making. You got to transform the decisions, because happiness is in your decisions. Right? The things that you choose to make influence the way the universe unfolds. So me making this choice to do this podcast changes the shape of the universe, right? And it creates happiness for me because I'm able to give from this wellspring of life within me. But it's those things. And then it's even the smallest things, like, did you make your bed this morning? Or did you have a glass of water? Certain things will contribute to how your life is outpictured in the future, right? They always say you can determine what the future looks like by what it is you're doing today. And it makes sense, because every action, every choice, every decision, every thought, every feeling is resonating and forming a reality that is the dance of the cosmos that the universe is doing every single moment of every day. So when I look at my decisions, I always look to see, are they in resonance with my own truth, right? So my own truth is basically everything that allows me to be the very best that I can be. And so what makes me the very best that I can be? Love, peace, compassion, inspiration, all of those things. So I have to ask myself, am I making decisions that support that, right? Am I making decisions that support my truth? If I'm not, I got to take a step back, and try to figure out, okay, how can I rectify this issue? How can I make a decision that supports my truth, right? In just a bit, I'm going to go to the gym. Why? Because the gym supports my truth. It keeps me strong. It keeps me inspired. It keeps me healthy. It keeps me coherent, right? So it's a lot of different things that come into play that help us to make the decisions that tie into our destiny, that lead to a life of not just success, but fulfillment, but joy, satisfaction, appreciation, contentment. All that stuff comes in when we tie destiny to decision, right? Tie destiny with decision. And so it's simple and it's marvelous when the implementation of it becomes an every moment thing, because guess what? You're making a decision pretty much every moment. Even if it's not physically, it's done with your thoughts and your emotions, right? So a lot of times We can wake up, from sleeping, and we have these thoughts just kind of racing through our minds. And so I've come to the realization that oftentimes, because the collective whole is just a whole in itself, and it's just one concept. The entire universe is one concept. All the beings, all the people within it is one concept. Pretty much everybody within the country, or many countries, is sleeping at a certain time, which means that entire consciousness is gelling itself together. So it's not a very peculiar thing to have if you wake up with a thought and you say, what was that? Right? So once again, decision comes in where you decide that you're going to take control of your thinking, but not necessarily your thoughts. And so before I confuse you, what I mean by that is if you're thinking stuff that's making you feel good, you're thinking stuff that's in alignment with the truth of who you believe to yourself to be, you're going to experience peace. If you have thoughts that are out of alignment with who you know yourself to be, you're going to have dissonance. But see, the thing is it's recognizing when those thoughts come in and saying, you know what? I just had a thought that said such and such, but I know that thought is out of alignment with my truth. And then you just dismiss it, right? And before you know it, that thought's gone. You've accepted it, right? You said, I've had that thought that such and such didn't align with my truth. I dismiss it, right? And then you replace it with a thought that does align with your truth, or you allow that thought to come in. And so from there, you become in control. You make the decision to become in control with your thinking, and then you receive more thoughts that are in alignment with who you are, right? So that's kind of just something that also ties into it, because once we get, I don't want to say possession, but once we're able to master the thinking process and what we allow into our minds, but more importantly, what we allow ourselves to see about certain situations, right? Because you take one situation and you take 4 different people, the situation can be explained in 4 different ways, but it all depends on what you're thinking, what you're feeling about yourself as to how you will see it, right? So that's why we always need to make sure that we're thinking optimally. We're giving ourselves the best possible chance to succeed no matter what is happening outside of us, because the fact of the matter is destiny, decision, all that stuff happens within first, and then it becomes an outpicturing of life, right? It becomes an outpicturing of everything outside of us, but it all happens within, okay? So in wrapping this up, it's important to understand these 2 parts. It's important to understand how these 2 parts come together and to not be confused under any circumstance as it relates to basically the idea that it's coming to a place to know that we don't have to be confused is what I'm trying to say. We don't ever have to be confused. All we have to do is figure out, what are our gifts? Why are we here? What makes us the most fulfilled? What are we drawn to, right? What does our heart lead us towards, right? Naturally, not in a forced perspective or a forced way, not because we want some type of approval, but naturally. Like, say, for instance, the entire money system was wiped out and you didn't have to make a living. This would be perfect, because when you don't have to necessarily make a living, what would you do with your time? Where would you devote your energy to? And I can tell you that pretty much helps you to ostracize anything else that is not a passion, a true divine passion of yours, and it directs you right to it. If you took the concept of money out of the equation, what would you do every day with your time? And then from there, you kind of see, okay, if you would devote energy into this without the idea of receiving anything back, that's likely what you're here to do, because a calling oftentimes is something you would do free without any form of payment under any circumstances. Although it's great to be paid for your calling, you know that this energy is, you're just doing it out of love, right? And so you start with that love, and those become the things that are able to really make you a fortune, because you're doing it without the need to get anything from it, right? So I know that's kind of long-winded, but the thing I want you to take from this is figure out your destiny, figure out your calling, whatever it takes. Sometimes even numerology, you can do like a free numerology report online to kind of get an idea as to why you're here, what type of gifts you have. Then look throughout your childhood. Think about something you love, because as kids, we spend hours at a time on certain things just for the joy of it, right? So think about that joy. Focus on that joy. Meditate on those experiences, right? And then decisions. Once you figure out who you are, and you should have a great idea of who you are now, make your decisions based off of that truth. And you will live a life, I promise you, you will live a life that you can be proud of. You will live a life that you can appreciate under every circumstance, because you're making the choice regardless of what is given to you outside. You're making the choice to stand by your truth, and the universe rewards that with a choice in like manner that manifests as a circumstance, right? So remember, this is an inside job. This is an inside game. With that, do everything you can that supports you in the most optimal way possible. Okay? So before we get into the seed portion of this, we're just going to say a prayer. Once again, just going to lift you up. And also, I just want to throw this in here. If you guys have any questions, if you guys have any comments, if you have any support, any, issues that you want me to possibly pray about or give advice on, just send me an email at seanG04@gmail.com, seanG04@gmail.com, and I will get to that as soon as I possibly can. And so, matter of fact, let's get into the seed right now, and then we will pray to let you go. So if you find this content beneficial, if you feel that this ministry has helped you, not just during this hour or half hour or of an episode, if you feel that this ministry has helped you over time, if you feel like I have helped you over time, and you decide that you want to be generous and kind enough to offer a donation or sow a seed today, please do so. That would be absolutely terrific. You can offer a seed, sow a donation at Venmo, Heart of Christ Ministry, Venmo, Heart of Christ Ministry, PayPal, SeanG04@gmail.com, SeanG04@gmail.com. That would be absolutely terrific. Thank you in advance for your kindness. And, I definitely appreciate that, because once again, that enables, the resources to expand, the ministry to grow, the ministry to expand and stuff like that. So once again, thank you. So we are going to say a prayer now as we get ready to let you go, and set you up for the day. Thank you so much for joining me during this time. And I'm sure that, this is some stuff that you could really use and implement to better your life and to allow you to feel the very best that you choose to feel. So with that being said, dearest God in me, thank you for this time that we have shared. Whether, someone is listening to this right now, presently with me as I am recording it, or it's in the future at some point in time, I ask that you bless these individuals. I ask that you bless these individuals with your wonderful grace, with your love, with the peace of knowing and understanding that there's a truth and a destiny that lies for each of us. And when we make the proper decisions to infuse that destiny and that truth with your love and your power, which lies within each of us, we can live a life that makes us happy. We can live a life that makes us fulfilled. And we thank you for the opportunity to have that, not just right now, but every moment of our lives. And so we pray. Amen. And so it is. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure today. You take care of yourself, and I will see you on the next podcast episode of Heart of Christ Ministry. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.